When the crowd disappears, you can hear the game breathe. That low hum in the concrete tunnels, the echoes of cleats against cement, the muffled shouts of trainers wrapping tape, the metallic clatter of shoulder pads drop to the floor. It's the quiet most people never hear, the moment when the gladiators remove their armor and step back into being men. And yet, for some, it's also the sound of an ending they never saw coming. Under the lights, the NFL feels immortal. The league markets its players as titans, fast, fearless, untouchable. But the truth lives in the spaces after the final whistle. That's where the contracts, the promises, and the illusions all start to unravel. Behind every roaring stadium is a room where ink dries, clauses hide, and futures are quietly rewritten. I remember the first time I watched a player walk down that hallway knowing his career was over. His helmet hung loosely at his side. His face was blank, emotionless. A torn ligament had just turned a multi-million-dollar deal into a ghost. He wasn't just losing a job, he was losing an identity, a lifetime of purpose. On paper, he'd earned $6 million. In reality, he'd see only a fraction. The rest vanished behind the fine print. That's the secret nobody tells you. In the NFL, your worth is measured not by what you give, but by what they can still take from you. For every superstar who makes headlines, there are hundreds of men whose names never stick. Men who trained every dawn, took every hit, but were released before their contracts ever meant anything. They walked in with dreams and left with a duffel bag. Their guaranteed money long gone. Their bodies already breaking. This story isn't about the touchdowns or the trophies. It's about the men left behind by the system that pretends to honor them. It's about the dark contract, the one written not in ink, but in expectation, pain, and silence. You see, most fans never think about the language buried inside those contracts. Guaranteed doesn't mean what you think it means. Injury protection isn't always protection. And career security, well, that's a myth. The league thrives on turnover, celebrates fresh legs, new heroes, next seasons. But the old ones, the ones who fall just short of a pension, who lose their health before they ever gain leverage, they fade into the same silence that follows the last game. A linebacker once told me, they said my deal was worth $5 million. They just never said to who. His signing bonus was a whisper of what was promised. The rest depended on games he'd never play again. A torn Achilles made sure of that. Within 6 months, the calls stopped. The benefits froze. He was 27 and forgotten. For the men who built this sport, loyalty is a one-way street. The league sells family, brotherhood, unity, but at its core, it's a business built on disposability. Once the ink dries, the countdown begins. Every hit, every play, every yard is another tick toward expiration. I've spoken with players who can't climb stairs without pain. Men who can't remember their own addresses after concussions, who wake up sweating because they still hear the roar of the crowd in dreams. Yet when they reach out for help, they're met with a form letter, your claim has been reviewed and denied. The stadium lights create illusions. To the fans, the players are rich. To the league, they're replaceable. And in between those two perceptions lies a chasm where truth disappears. Contracts are supposed to mean something. They're supposed to represent trust, mutual respect, a promise between men. But in the NFL, they've become tools, engineered with precision to protect owners, minimize guarantees, and turn human beings into short-term investments. Every season, millions of viewers cheer the spectacle without realizing the quiet suffering that follows beneath the numbers. Think of the names that flashed across screens for a season and then were gone. Players who left with nothing but medical bills. Wide receivers whose knees collapsed a yard before their contract bonuses vested. Linemen who played through concussions because next man up meant no pay. They'll never be on highlight reels, but they built the foundation of this empire. The league calls it business. But if business means rewarding loyalty with abandonment, if it means valuing performance over humanity, then what does that make the men who sign those papers believing in fairness? Some say every player knows what he's signing up for. That risk is part of the deal. But risk should be shared, not weaponized. For decades, the league has mastered the art of risk distribution. Profits flow upward, liability flows down. Owners profit from guaranteed TV revenue. Players gamble with guaranteed pain. There's a cruelty in that arithmetic. It's in the way a front office will smile during negotiations, then cut a player days before his bonus triggers. It's in the way medical staff are pressured to clear players faster, even when they're still bleeding beneath the surface. It's in the way retired athletes fill out disability forms for injuries the league once glorified, only to be told those wounds don't qualify. I've read the contracts. They're marvels of manipulation, long, dense, and filled with conditional phrases, subject to termination at the discretion of the club, voidable upon injury. Every paragraph a trapdoor, every signature a surrender. But here's what the paper doesn't capture: the pride. The belief that hard work could outlast policy. That being part of the team meant something greater than the business itself. That illusion keeps the machine running. When a player steps onto that field, he's not thinking about legal clauses. He's thinking about survival, legacy. The boy who dreamed of Sundays under the lights. And that's what makes it tragic. Because by the time he realizes the contract was never built to protect him, it's already too late. Every hit has a cost. Some costs are paid in blood, others in silence. The silence that comes after the crowd leaves, when the locker room empties and the stadium hum fades into darkness. It's the same silence that follows a phone call saying, "We're moving in a different direction." The same silence that meets a denied claim, a lost benefit, an empty mailbox. The NFL sells immortality, but delivers impermanence. The logo lasts forever. The men do not. This documentary isn't about bitterness, it's about truth. About how a billion-dollar machine built on talent, sacrifice, and human will quietly forgets its creators. It's about the broken promises, the hollow assurances, and the silence that follows when the game moves on. There's a moment every player faces, though few admit it, the realization that the league never loved them back. For some, it comes with an injury. For others, a release notice. For many, it comes in retirement. When the calls stop, the benefits vanish, and the headlines fade. But even then, they remember the roar. They remember the smell of turf, the crack of helmets, the feeling of invincibility. That's the cruel genius of the system. It gives you something so beautiful, you'll forgive it for taking everything else. In the end, it's not the hits that break them. It's the silence after the stadium. Because once the lights go out, all that's left is the echo of promises and the men left behind. When I first began to peel back the layers of the NFL's contract system, I thought I understood it. I thought the game was what we all saw on Sundays: talent rewarded, hard work paid, loyalty honored. But the deeper I went, the more I realized how little of it was built on truth. Beneath the spectacle, beneath the trophies and the billion-dollar broadcasts, lives a world of paper and promises, and most of those promises never make it past the ink. The NFL doesn't just operate on contracts, it survives on them. They're the bloodlines of the business, legal documents that define who matters, who doesn't, and for how long. But unlike the contracts in other major sports, NFL deals are written in disappearing ink. Only a fraction of what's signed is guaranteed. That means a player can sign for $20 million. But if he tears a ligament in the wrong week or offends the wrong executive, that number dissolves into fiction. He may see a quarter of it, if he's lucky. The rest becomes a memory of what was promised. This is the core of what I call the dark contract. The unspoken agreement between the league and its players that success comes with silence and security is an illusion. It's not just legal fine print. It's moral fine print. It's the idea that value lasts only as long as a player can perform. That loyalty flows upward, and protection flows nowhere. The NFL is unique among America's major leagues in how little of its player money is actually secure. In baseball, contracts are fully guaranteed. In basketball, nearly the same. But in football, the most violent, most physically destructive of them all, less than half of any given team's payroll is protected. The system was built that way, not by accident, but by design. The league found a way to make human beings both disposable and profitable at once. Every year, hundreds of players sign deals that will never pay what's written. Some are cut before the season starts, others released days before bonuses vest, and still others injured just shy of their guaranteed thresholds. It's an architecture of risk that the league justifies as competitive balance. But it's really economic insulation, a safety net for owners, paid for by the bodies of their players. Let's break it down. When a player signs, he sees big numbers, years, millions, incentives. But buried in the language are clauses that make every dollar conditional. Guaranteed money refers only to what's paid up front or explicitly secured. For some, that's just a signing bonus. The rest? Contingent upon staying healthy, making the roster, or meeting performance benchmarks that can vanish with a single injury. The average NFL career lasts less than 4 years. For running backs, it's barely over 2. That's not enough time to build generational wealth or even secure the pensions promised decades ago. The league's collective bargaining agreement requires 3 credited seasons for a player to qualify for pension benefits. Miss that mark by a game, by a week, and everything you sacrificed. Every concussion, every torn muscle, every sleepless night becomes just another statistic. There's a player whose story stays with me. A defensive tackle drafted in the 3rd round in 2015. He played 3 seasons, tore his rotator cuff in training camp before his 4th. The team waived him with an injury settlement worth less than 2 months' pay. That injury ended his career, but it also robbed him of his pension. 3 credited seasons and 1 game short. That is how thin the margin is between retirement security and abandonment. He told me, I gave them everything I had. But when it was over, they didn't even call. His voice didn't sound angry. It sounded hollow, the sound of someone realizing that the family he thought he belonged to was only a corporation with good marketing. The culture of the NFL teaches players to endure anything, pain, pressure, silence, because to complain is to seem weak. It's why so many sign those dark contracts without reading the fine print. The business preys on youth, on hunger, on the dream. Rookies sign believing they've made it. They don't realize they just stepped into one of the most complex legal battlegrounds in sports. Take a rookie deal, for example. A 4th-round pick might sign for 4 years and $3.6 million, but his guaranteed amount could be just $500,000. That means if he's cut after 1 season, he walks away with barely enough to cover taxes and relocation. Meanwhile, the team replaces him with another hopeful, another believer, another signature. It's a cycle that repeats endlessly, efficient and silent. There's a quiet cruelty in how the system handles injury. When a player gets hurt, the contract often gives the team power to release him, reclassify the injury, or negotiate a settlement worth pennies on the dollar. It's legal, but it's also merciless. Imagine breaking your spine on live television and then receiving a letter explaining that your benefits no longer apply. That's not a hypothetical. It's happened. One of the most infamous examples was the story of linebacker Zach Orr. After leading his team in tackles, he was diagnosed with a spinal condition that ended his career at 24. The league praised his courage, but the business side left him hanging in legal ambiguity, fighting for benefits he should have automatically received. His name became another cautionary tale in a league filled with them. Then there are the veterans, the men who built the foundation of the modern game. Many were promised lifetime healthcare and fair pensions in the 1970s and 1980s. Decades later, those promises evaporated in a haze of renegotiations and corporate restructuring. thousands of retired players now live with chronic pain, memory loss, and financial hardship. Some have filed lawsuits just to access disability benefits tied to injuries sustained in league-sanctioned games. The NFL's disability plan is one of the most contested aspects of its empire. On paper, it offers support for those permanently injured. In practice, it's a labyrinth of denials. As of recent reports, less than 1% of applicants receive total disability benefits, despite the overwhelming medical evidence that football's physical toll is lifelong. The same league that films commercials celebrating its legends often leaves those same men fighting paperwork for years. That's what makes this story more than just economics. It tests about the moral contract, the one that I send T written down, but is understood by every player who has ever put on a uniform. The belief that if you give your body, your time, your loyalty, the league will take care of you. But time and again, that unwritten contract breaks. There's another layer to this darkness: silence. Most players never speak about what really happens. Not because they don't want to, but because speaking means losing everything: endorsements, job opportunities, even relationships within the fraternity of the sport. There's an unspoken rule: protect the shield, don't expose the system, don't question the fine print. But beneath that silence are human stories that deserve to be told. Men who can't hold their children without pain. Men whose post-career depression went untreated because insurance didn't cover mental health under injury clauses. Men whose highlight reels still circulate online while they quietly struggle to afford treatment for the very injuries that made those highlights possible. The truth is, the dark contract extends beyond the player. It touches families, marriages, and entire communities. It shapes the way young athletes are raised, conditioned to chase glory without understanding the machinery that controls it. High school players watch the draft, dreaming of their moment, unaware that even if they make it, the system might still consume them. What this documentary seeks to uncover isn't just financial exploitation. It's the moral architecture of an institution that calls itself family while operating as industry. We'll explore how agents, owners, and executives have built layers of protection for themselves while marketing vulnerability as valor. We'll hear from those who fought back, players who refused silence, journalists who exposed lies, and doctors who risked careers to tell the truth. We'll trace the history of contract manipulation from the pre-free agency days when players were property of their teams, to the modern era where freedom is an illusion bound by salary caps and void years. We'll dissect the language that has turned promises into loopholes and men into numbers. But most importantly, we'll give voice to those who are left behind. The forgotten veterans, the rookies who never got paid, the men who went from headlines to hardship in a single season. Because this story isn't about destroying the game, it's about understanding the cost of loving it. Football has always been a paradox: beauty in violence, unity in pain, glory in sacrifice. But beneath all that, there's a business built to profit from impermanence. For decades, fans have cheered for the game's heroes without realizing that many of them were casualties of its system long before they ever retired. So as we step into this investigation, we won't look away from the uncomfortable truths. We'll follow the trail from locker rooms to boardrooms, from contracts to courtrooms, from glory to silence. We'll uncover the hidden deals, the legal maneuvers, the emotional toll, and the resilience of those who refuse to disappear. Because the dark contract isn't just a document. It's a reflection of power. Who has it, who loses it, and who gets left behind when the lights go out. And by the end of this journey, one question will remain. In a game built on sacrifice, how much is a man's worth when the cheering stops? In professional sports, money often tells the story long before the scoreboard does. In the NBA or Major League Baseball, a signature means security, a promise written in ink that will stand even if the player falls. In the NFL, the same ink fades fast. Here, contracts are less like shields and more like illusions. On paper, they sparkle with million-dollar figures and years of commitment. In reality, Most are built on clauses and contingencies, fragile structures that can collapse overnight. These are not contracts built to protect men. They're blueprints for disposal. When people talk about the business side of football, they often repeat the same phrase: "It's just part of the game." But behind that phrase hides a system that trades loyalty for leverage. A man can give his body, his mind, and his prime years to the sport, only to learn that his worth was conditional, his security temporary. That's the quiet truth of the NFL's paper promises. In the National Football League, unlike other professional leagues, most contracts are non-guaranteed. The average fan sees a headline, "5-year deal worth $50 million," and imagines a player set for life. What that headline doesn't reveal is how little of that figure is real. The fine print determines everything: guaranteed bonuses, injury waivers, offsets, and the invisible clauses that can erase a career's worth of labor in a single phone call. Colin Kaepernick once stood as a rising face of the league, a quarterback who carried San Francisco to the Super Bowl and electrified a generation of fans. His 6-year contract with the 49ers, announced in 2014, was reported as worth $126 million. But the truth was buried beneath performance triggers and partial guarantees. Only a fraction, about $13 million, was secure. When controversy followed his protest, the safety net vanished. The contract that once looked like a lifetime pact evaporated in a cloud of fine print. The number everyone remembered became a myth. DeMarco Murray learned a similar lesson under different lights. In 2014, he led the league in rushing for the Dallas Cowboys to 1,845 yards, 13 touchdowns, and the reputation of a workhorse built for Sundays. That season, he carried the ball 392 times, a modern-day burden for a running back. When he signed a 5-year, $40 million deal with the Philadelphia Eagles, it looked like his reward had come. But football doesn't pay for the past, it bets on the future. After just 1 year, Murray was traded to Tennessee. The deal's guarantees had already dried up. By year 3, the contract was history. This is the quiet cruelty of the league's economy. A man signs his name beneath a number that sounds like security, and yet it's only the portion labeled guaranteed that survives the season. In 2024, the average guaranteed percentage of an NFL contract hovered around 43%. Compare that to baseball's 100%, basketball's 100%, even hockey's near total coverage, and the disparity feels almost medieval. Football, the most dangerous and physically punishing of them all, remains the sport least willing to guarantee its laborers their due. The justification, at least on paper, is risk management. The NFL argues that because football is violent and unpredictable, teams must protect themselves from long-term liability. But the irony is impossible to ignore. The very injuries that make the game unsafe are the same ones that void a man's security. A torn ligament doesn't just end a season, it can terminate income, erase benefits, and leave medical costs for the player to shoulder alone. Consider the story of Thomas Davis, the linebacker who tore his ACL 3 times and still clawed his way back onto the field. His contract with Carolina was structured around playtime incentives. Every snap he played was a paycheck earned. Every missed game was money gone. For Davis, that wasn't motivation, it was survival. And he was one of the lucky ones who made it back. For every Davis, there are dozens who never do. The culture reinforces it. Players are taught early to be grateful for any deal, to prove it every year, every down. Coaches praise sacrifice. General managers praise flexibility. But behind the slogans lies a calculated imbalance, a league built to minimize commitment to its players while maximizing control over them. For years, the union fought to expand guarantees, but owners held firm, knowing leverage belonged to those who could replace a man faster than his body could heal. The human toll hides beneath statistics. For every contract torn up, there's a life rerouted, mortgages renegotiated, families uprooted, futures delayed. Many players sign veteran minimum deals just to stay in the league, chasing one more season. One more chance to earn the kind of guarantee that others in different sports take for granted. But in football, the guarantee often comes too late or never comes at all. The NFL's compensation structure is built on three illusions: the headline number, the loyalty clause, and the myth of meritocracy. The headline number sells the dream, a contract so large it creates envy and distraction. The loyalty clause disguises the imbalance, suggesting that both sides share equal faith, when in truth, only one side has the power to void it. And the myth of meritocracy, that the best always rise and stay, keeps players silent about the inequity, believing that if they just play better, the system will reward them. It rarely does. Even legends have learned the hard way. Jerry Rice, in his final seasons, signed short-term incentive-based contracts that paid him only if he stayed active. Terrell Suggs, a future Hall of Famer, once restructured his deal just to guarantee a fraction of his earnings after injury. Alex Smith, after his devastating leg injury in 2018, returned miraculously, but his contract's guarantees had to be reworked to ensure any future security. These are not unknown names. They are the pillars of the sport. Yet even they walked the same narrow line between glory and erasure. The most devastating stories come from the margins: practice squad players, late-round draft picks, undrafted free agents. Their contracts are week to week, their benefits conditional, their health coverage fleeting. A single roster cut can end not only their dream, but their access to post-career medical care. They enter the league believing they've made it. They leave, realizing they were only ever renting a spot. There's a saying whispered among veterans: your contract ends the moment you need it most. It captures the dark poetry of football's business. The idea that loyalty vanishes precisely when vulnerability appears. This first layer of the dark contract isn't about corruption in the traditional sense, it's about design. The system functions exactly as intended: efficient, ruthless, self-preserving. Owners protect profits. Agents chase percentages. The league presents stability, but it's a carefully constructed illusion for the men inside it. The contract is both promise and trap, a path to glory that can end without warning, without apology, without compensation. Every season, hundreds of players learn that truth in silence. A knock on the locker room door, a clipboard, a short meeting upstairs. The words, "We're going in a different direction," than a signature on a termination notice. The nameplate is gone before the player reaches his car. In other sports, the contract is a guarantee. In football, it's a countdown. That is the essence of the dark contract, a world where promises are made in public and broken in private. A world where ink means nothing once the helmet comes off. And it's only the first chapter in understanding how the league built its empire, not just on talent and spectacle, but on the fragility of the men who supply both. Every spring, the cameras flash, the confetti falls. And another generation of young men walk across a stage believing they've made it. Draft night is the grand illusion, the televised ceremony that sells hope as certainty. Mothers cry, fathers beam, and the player, clutching the jersey of his new team, says the same words countless others have said before: "I am just blessed to be here." But beneath the lights and laughter, beneath the sound of destiny being announced, hides a truth almost too cruel for that moment. That, for most of them, here will not last long. The NFL draft is not an arrival. It's an invitation to survive. Each year, more than 250 players are drafted. Another 400 or more are signed as undrafted free agents. By the time the season begins, nearly half of them will already be gone. The rest will live on a week-to-week existence where one missed block, one pulled hamstring, one front office shuffle can erase their name from the roster. What the cameras show on draft night is the dream. What they never show is the contract, the paper behind the promise, and how it's built for early exits. Most rookies don't realize it, not fully. They see the numbers, the signing bonus, the years. But unless they're drafted in the first round, there's little to guarantee survival. The contract structure is simple: a small signing bonus, a non-guaranteed base salary, and a clause that allows teams to cut them at any moment without financial consequence. It's the most common trick in the business: the appearance of opportunity, not the reality of security. Consider the story of Jake Locker, the quarterback taken 8th overall by the Tennessee Titans in 2011. On draft night, the cameras caught his smile, his family's joy, his coach's handshake. 4 years later, he was retired, burned out, his career shortened by injuries and pressure. Of the $12 million he was promised, he earned less than half. The guarantees had expired before his body did. His exit wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. The silence that follows a business decision. Then there's Michael Sam, drafted by the St. Louis Rams in 2014, who made history as the first openly gay player selected in the NFL. His contract was standard for years, $2.6 million, but only $46,000 was guaranteed. When he was cut before the season, that number became reality. The headlines focused on controversy, but the truth was systemic. The league is built to replace men faster than it rewards them. For many rookies, even those drafted in the middle rounds, the contract's fine print reads like a manual for disposability. They don't get full guarantees, only partial signing bonuses and split salaries, reduced pay if they end up injured. The result is a pipeline that constantly resets itself. New bodies, new dreams, same illusion. Every training camp, hundreds of rookies report with the same mindset: compete, learn, prove. They wear the team's gear, memorize the playbook, shake hands with veterans who have already learned the game's harder lessons. But behind closed doors, the team's financial department already knows who's safe and who's not. Salaries are budgeted months in advance. A rookie's contract, ICE, a sign of faith. It's a placeholder for potential value. The NFL sells competition as meritocracy, but competition is also a convenient disguise for planned turnover. Each player's contract becomes a lever for cost control. Younger, cheaper, replaceable. That's the formula. A veteran might earn $2 million per year. Take Chris Borland, a linebacker drafted by the 49ers in 2014. He played one brilliant season, recorded over 100 tackles, and then walked away at 24 due to concerns about brain trauma. His decision shook the league, not because he retired, but because he did so before the money came. His rookie deal was 4 years, $2.9 million. He left nearly 2/3 of it unearned. His exit revealed the contradiction at the heart of the system. Players are told to give everything, yet they're paid as if they might give nothing. For those who aren't first-round picks, the financial math is even harsher. That validation rarely comes. Undrafted free agents, players like Arian Foster or Kurt Warner, who later became stars, are exceptions, not examples. For everyone who breaks through, dozens never make a regular season roster. They spend months in training camps, sleeping in team hotels, practicing in silence, knowing their names may never appear on a jersey sold in a store. One former player once said, "When you're a rookie, your dream is to make the team. When you make it, your dream is to stay." That second dream is harder. And the illusion doesn't end once the first season starts. Rookie contracts are structured to trap players in a cycle of control. First-round picks have fifth-year options, which allow teams to extend them without renegotiation. Others are bound by exclusive rights and restricted free agent rules, which prevent them from testing the market until their physical prime is already spent. The result: by the time most players are free to negotiate real security, they're no longer as valuable. The system has already planned their expiration. There's a quiet cruelty to how hope is packaged. The league's marketing engine celebrates these young men as stories of triumph, kids who made it out or beat the odds. Yet the contracts they sign are designed to test not their skill, but their survival. Their bonuses vanish in taxes. Their salaries depend on active status, and their health insurance expires once they're cut. By the time they understand how fragile it all is, it's already too late. The rookie illusion thrives because of one thing: silence. Players rarely speak out early in their careers. They're told to be grateful, to earn their keep, to avoid controversy. The league feeds on that silence. It's how the business maintains its image of opportunity while operating a system of turnover. A few voices have broken through. Ryan Broyles, drafted by Detroit in 2012, lived frugally on $60,000 a year despite a contract worth millions. He knew the math that his career could end in a moment, and he planned for it. Andrew Luck, a former #1 pick, retired young, citing the emotional and physical toll of the game. His decision, like Borland's, forced a reckoning that most players can't afford to have. For every rookie who gets a jersey stitched with his name, dozens never see the field. For every signing bonus, there's a hidden clause. For every dream fulfilled on draft night, there's a quiet release notice waiting months later. That's the dark beauty of the league's machinery. It never stops moving. Hope in, bodies out. The draft sells a story of rebirth each spring, but behind the curtain, the same cycle repeats. New talent, old contracts, endless turnover. The illusion isn't the dream itself, it's the belief that the dream guarantees anything. Because in the NFL, contracts are not ladders. They're traps disguised as steps. And for most rookies, the climb ends long before anyone realizes they've fallen. The NFL sells courage. It glorifies pain as proof of devotion, injury as a badge of brotherhood. Every Sunday, millions of eyes watch men collide in a spectacle that thrives on physical sacrifice. But behind the highlight reels and hero montages lies a brutal truth few fans ever see: that pain in the NFL isn't just inevitable. It's a currency. And the players paying with their bodies rarely live long enough in the game to see a return. For most athletes, the path to a payday is a narrow, dangerous climb. Rookie contracts are backloaded, heavily incentivized with bonuses and guarantees that only activate after certain thresholds. Years of service, games played, snaps taken. But football is a sport that breaks bodies faster than it builds fortunes. It's designed that way. The average NFL career lasts about 3.3 years. Yet many contracts don't vest guarantees until the fourth season. That gap between promise and payout is where dreams collapse. Take the story of Dennis Dixon, a quarterback once destined for stardom out of Oregon. Drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, he had the arm, the intelligence, the system fit. But one non-contact knee injury in practice shifted his entire trajectory. His contract? Minimal guarantees. Rehab wasn't glamorous, and roster spots were scarce. Within months, he was gone. Not medically cleared in time to count toward pension eligibility. The league moved on, just as it always does. Or look at Thomas Davis, the linebacker who tore his ACL 3 separate times with the Carolina Panthers. He fought back from everyone, a medical miracle by any standard. But his journey wasn't powered by guaranteed security. It was driven by desperation. The Panthers could have cut him after each injury, saving millions. They didn't, out of loyalty and sheer disbelief that he'd come back. But that exception proved the rule. The system rewards resilience only when it's profitable. Most aren't so lucky. Victor Cruz, the Electric Giants receiver who danced into America's heart, saw his career disintegrate after a torn patellar tendon. His contract included performance escalators that vanished the instant he couldn't play. The same season, his replacement, a younger, cheaper receiver, took the field under a rookie deal. Cruz's comeback attempt the following year was inspiring, but financially, the damage was irreversible. The NFL's economic design doesn't just expect players to risk injury, it counts on it. Every player knows the language of risk. They sign contracts that say, injury guarantee, two words that sound like safety, but often mean almost nothing. A player might have a clause guaranteeing his salary only if injured in a game, but not in practice. Another might require that the team carry him on injured reserve through the season to qualify. Something a franchise can avoid simply by releasing him under a failed physical designation. It's not illegal, it's procedural. In the NFL's hierarchy of pain, the injured player becomes a liability, not a hero. Once sidelined, they fade quickly from the public eye. A torn Achilles is yesterday's headline. A concussion report disappears after the final whistle. The next week brings another story, another soldier, another sacrifice. And through it all, the business keeps moving, protected by clauses, insurance policies, and loopholes that always seem to favor ownership. Former running back Arian Foster once said, "They tell you to play through pain, to be tough. But when you finally break, they treat you like you were never tough enough." His words captured what countless veterans feel but rarely admit. Playing through pain isn't bravery, it's survival. Because missing a game could mean missing a check, missing a roster bonus, missing your shot to exist in a league built on replaceability. In a locker room, painkillers flow like candy. Toradol shots before kickoff, cortisone after. Aches masked, swelling ignored. Trainers patch up men like mechanics, fixing race cars between laps. They know the engine will eventually blow, but the system demands they keep it running until the finish line, or until someone younger and cheaper replaces it. For those who fall before payday, the aftermath is cruelly silent. Insurance fights drag on for years, medical bills pile up, and the same organizations that once used their faces for marketing campaigns suddenly don't return calls. Many never make it to their pension, which requires at least 3 credited seasons. Some miss by a handful of games, an injury or 2 away from lifetime health benefits. In 2019, a study from Harvard Law's Players' Rights Project revealed that the NFL's disability plan approved less than 40% of claims from retired players, many with severe physical impairments. The rest were denied, often on technicalities. A league with billions in revenue couldn't guarantee security for the very men who made it possible. It's a paradox that defines modern football. The league glorifies toughness while monetizing fragility. The very act of playing hard enough to earn a contract makes it nearly impossible to fulfill one. Players dream of their second deal, the true payday, but most never reach it. Their careers end on stretchers, not stages. In this economy of bodies, pain isn't a side effect. It's the foundation. Every broken bone, every torn ligament, every shattered dream adds to the spectacle that fans celebrate and sponsors exploit. And yet, for the men who give their all, the scoreboard of life often reads 0 when the final whistle blows. The NFL will always find new talent, new contracts, new stories. But for those who fell short of payday, who gave everything before their bodies gave out, the game they loved becomes a ghost that never quite lets go. Every NFL player dreams of the moment the pen hits paper. Flashbulbs pop, reporters crowd around, and a contract worth millions becomes a headline that sounds like triumph. But beneath the celebration lies a labyrinth of legal engineering so intricate it would make a Wall Street banker blush. In a league obsessed with control, contracts aren't written to protect the players, they're written to protect the system. The NFL's legal machinery runs on complexity. What looks like a $60 million deal on ESPN often hides a fraction of that in guaranteed money. The rest is structured through conditional bonuses, void years, and clauses so precise that missing a single game can cost hundreds of thousands. For the untrained eye, it's financial language. For the players, it's a trap disguised as opportunity. Start with offset language, a quiet clause that can erase the illusion of security. When a team releases a player who still has guaranteed money left on his contract, the offset clause allows that team to deduct any salary the player earns from another club. In other words, a guarantee isn't really guaranteed at all. If you're cut and picked up elsewhere, your old team gets a discount. It's legal fine print that shifts risk entirely onto the athlete. Take the case of Nick Foles. After leading the Eagles to a Super Bowl win, His next contract came loaded with incentives and partial guarantees, but the offset clause remained. When he left Jacksonville, his new salary in Chicago essentially reduced what the Jaguars owed him. On paper, he was earning millions. In reality, he was earning what his old contract already promised him, just from a different pocket. Then come the roster bonuses, deceptively simple, yet powerful levers of control. A player may have a $5 million roster bonus due on March 15th. The team can simply release him on March 14th, avoiding the payout entirely. It's not personal, it's procedural. Every spring, veterans with too much value on paper are cut loose before those dates arrive. These aren't accidents. They're strategic purges baked into the off-season calendar. The introduction of void years has made this game even murkier. Originally designed as a tool to manage salary cap space, void years extend a contract's length artificially, often beyond when the player is expected to stay. They allow teams to spread out signing bonuses across phantom seasons that never actually exist. When the player eventually leaves, that unallocated money accelerates, creating dead cap space. For franchises, it's accounting magic. For players, it's a ticking time bomb that means their future was never really part of the plan. Even the term guaranteed money carries caveats. There are skill guarantees, cap guarantees, and injury guarantees. Three categories that sound protective but serve different masters. A skill guarantee pays the player even if he's cut for poor performance. A cap guarantee pays him even if the team needs to make salary adjustments. But injury guarantees, they only activate if a player is injured while under contract and still on the roster, which means a team can cut him before designating him as injured to avoid the payout. It's all legal. It's all intentional. NFL contract lawyer Daniel Wallach once described it bluntly. Every line is written to benefit the team, lest an agent negotiates it out, and even then, the team writes the next clause to balance it back. He wasn't exaggerating. A typical NFL player contract runs 20 to 30 pages, dense with conditions, bonuses, offsets, and cross-references to the collective bargaining agreement. The only people who fully understand them are the lawyers, and the league employs more of them than any players union ever could. That imbalance defines the entire labor structure. The NFL Players Association (NFLPA) exists to defend athletes' rights, but even they acknowledge the asymmetry. Union representatives often admit that teams have the leverage. The collective bargaining agreement allows for minimum salary guarantees and pension protections. But beyond that, players must rely on their agents to navigate shark-infested waters. And while there are brilliant agents out there, many operate under conflicts of interest, especially when maintaining relationships with general managers is crucial for their next client. Inside team offices, contract negotiations resembled chess matches played over spreadsheets. Lawyers argue not over dollars, but over definitions. What qualifies as active roster? What constitutes a football injury? Or how to classify a workout bonus? The smallest phrasing can mean millions gained or lost. When a player like DeMarco Murray signs a deal worth $40 million, only a fraction of that is real currency. The rest exists in the conditional world of if. If he stays healthy, he remains productive. If he isn't replaced, this is the paradox of NFL labor. Even success doesn't guarantee security. A Pro Bowl one season can turn into a pink slip the next. The team will cite cap space or organizational direction. The truth is usually in the contract spine print escape hatches written long before the first snap. In contrast, Major League Baseball and the NBA operate under fully guaranteed deals. When an NBA player signs for $120 million, he earns every cent unless he breaches the contract. Baseball players, even when injured, collect their full pay. In football, though, the system is deliberately fragile. Owners argue that the sport's violence makes guarantees impossible, too much injury risk. But that argument conceals the deeper motive: control. By structuring contracts this way, the NFL ensures constant flexibility, perpetual leverage, and financial predictability. Union lawyers have fought to close these loopholes for decades. They've pushed for stronger injury protections, better disability coverage, and more transparency in contract disclosures. Yet progress moves slowly because the players' careers are so short. By the time one generation realizes the system's traps, the next one has already signed the same kind of deal, dazzled by the same false numbers. Even the most financially literate veterans can fall prey to timing. Take Carlos Dansby, who famously negotiated his own contracts. He was among the few to secure nearly full guarantees. But his success was an anomaly, not a precedent. Most players don't have the leverage or the health to demand that kind of control. Behind closed doors, agents and union reps often describe NFL contracts as house money. The team writes the rules. The player gets a token of luck, and everyone pretends it's a partnership. In reality, it's a system built on constant turnover, every clause, every guarantee, every offset designed to make players expendable the moment they stop producing. So while fans read about record-breaking deals and headline contracts, the truth is more sobering. The legal maze isn't just paperwork. It's the architecture of modern football, a structure that ensures the game will always favor the billionaires upstairs, not the men on the field below. In the world of professional football, the first deal a player signs is often not with a team. It's with an agent, before the cameras, before the draft, before the handshake with a coach. There's a contract between the athlete and the representative who promises to protect him. But in the shadowed business of the NFL, that protection is often a mirage. Behind every multi-million-dollar deal lies an ecosystem of influence, persuasion, and quiet betrayal. The game behind the game. Agents sell dreams as much as they sell athletes. They present themselves as guardians, as strategists who understand the maze of clauses and cap space better than anyone. But in truth, the modern sports agent has evolved into something closer to a broker, someone who trades potential for profit, now whose loyalty is often split between the client and the industry that feeds them. Players are marketed not as people, but as assets, numbers on a spreadsheet of opportunity. The relationship between player and agent begins in vulnerability. College stars, still barely out of their teens, find themselves pursued by agents promising security and fame. Some arrive at pro days wearing tailored suits paid for by these agents, driving cars fronted by marketing advances, unaware that the costs are often recouped later, not from profits, but from their own future earnings. The pitch is always the same. Trust me, so I'll take care of you. But in a league where only a fraction of players see their second contract, that trust is rarely repaid. The NFL agent's fee, usually capped at 3%, seems modest. But the real leverage lies in access. The most powerful agents control entire client stables, managing quarterbacks, stars, and rookies under one umbrella. Teams know that negotiating with a mega-agent isn't just about one player. It's about maintaining relationships for the next draft, the next free agency period. This gives agents enormous influence and creates dangerous conflicts of interest. A young linebacker negotiating his first deal might find himself represented by the same agency that handles his team's franchise quarterback. Who do you think gets the leverage in that room? Who gets the late-night calls and the personal attention? In an industry built on perception, hierarchy matters. Players at the bottom of the pyramid become chips in a much larger trade game. Historically, this imbalance wasn't always so stark. In the early days of the NFL, players often represented themselves or relied on family members. Contracts were simple, 1 or 2 pages long, sometimes written on letterhead or even napkins. But as television money grew and collective bargaining shaped a billion-dollar marketplace, representation became essential. The first wave of high-profile agents, figures like Lee Steinberg in the 1980s, transformed sports negotiation into public theater. Steinberg's clients, from Troy Aikman to Steve Young, became stars not just on the field, but in the business arena. Steinberg famously described his job as a mix of lawyer, psychologist, and advocate. He pushed for guaranteed contracts and better concussion awareness long before they were fashionable. But as the league's money exploded, his idealism was drowned out by corporate efficiency. Agencies became conglomerates. Representation turned industrial. Today, one agency might represent dozens of players on the same roster, and even negotiate media deals and sponsorships with the same franchises those players face across the table. This dual loyalty isn't theoretical, it's systemic. Some agents earn far more from their agency's marketing division than from player commissions. That means it's often more profitable to maintain good relationships with general managers and owners than to fight for one client. Marginal increase in guaranteed money. The player believes his advocate is pushing hard in the room, but the reality is quieter. Compromise in exchange for long-term access. Players who speak out about these betrayals rarely do so publicly. Many are silenced by the fear of being blackballed, not by the league, but by the invisible network of agents who control introductions, endorsements, and future opportunities. Yet a few voices have broken through. Former linebacker Josh Bynes once reflected, "You think your agent's job is to fight for you? But the second the team calls him about another guy, you're forgotten." His experience echoes across locker rooms, players realizing too late that their advocate had too many clients, too many deals, too many interests. And then there's the illusion of agent loyalty. Some athletes fire their representation after a disappointing deal, only to find out that every major agency operates under similar ethics. The business model isn't about protecting players from the system, it's about managing them within it. Agents know that for every disgruntled client, another wide-eyed rookie is waiting to sign. The NFL Players Association certifies agents, but oversight has limits. Certification requires financial transparency, continuing education, and adherence to a code of conduct. Yet, violations are common. Kickback scandals, recruitment gifts, and conflicts of interest have dotted the industry's history for decades. The union can suspend or revoke licenses, but by then, the damage to the player's finances or career is often irreversible. In one notorious case, a mid-level agent advanced a rookie hundreds of thousands in pre-draft expenses, training, travel, housing, all to be repaid from the player's signing bonus. When that rookie went undrafted, the agent demanded repayment, threatening legal action. The player, now without a team or income, faced financial ruin before ever stepping onto a field. It's a harsh reminder that in the agent's game, compassion is optional. Even star players aren't immune. Colin Kaepernick's journey, once guided by traditional representation, evolved into a battle of message over money. His stance against systemic injustice made him radioactive to owners, and many agents quietly distanced themselves, fearing damage to their broader portfolios. It was proof that even at the highest levels, loyalty bends to convenience. Modern representation has grown more sophisticated and colder. Agencies now employ data scientists, PR strategists, and financial advisors, transforming clients into brands. Contracts are no longer just about salaries. They're integrated marketing packages designed to extend monetization beyond the field. On paper, this looks progressive, empowering athletes to control their image. In practice, it deepens the commodification of human potential. When a player is injured or cut, those same agencies often vanish. Marketing stops. Calls go unanswered. The brand dissolves because the business model was built on visibility, not humanity. The moment the lights dim, the relationship ends. There's a quiet irony in all of it. The men who risk their bodies to entertain millions still rely on intermediaries who profit from their vulnerability. Agents stand as both gatekeepers and middlemen, essential to navigating the system, yet inseparable from the system's flaws. The player cannot bypass them, yet cannot always trust them. It's a dependency cycle the NFL has perfected. Some athletes have tried to break free. Players like Richard Sherman and Russell O. Kang famously represented themselves, challenging the industry's norms. Sherman's contract with the 49ers, heavily incentive-based, was negotiated personally, and when critics called it risky, he replied, "No one knows my worth better than I do." His success proved that independence is possible, but it's the exception, not the rule. The system remains designed for intermediaries, not individuals. In the end, the agent's game mirrors the league itself, polished, profitable, and predatory. Players sign, celebrate, and hope for loyalty in a business where loyalty is a liability. Behind every handshake is another deal waiting to replace them. And behind every contract, another agent calculating how much the next signature is worth. In football, silence often speaks louder than applause. It's the silence after a collision when a player doesn't get up. The crowd goes still, the cameras pull back, and for a fleeting moment, the illusion cracks. Behind the spectacle of toughness and the mantra of next man up, there lies a private world of pain. A world of concussions, hidden under helmets, of surgeries that never fully heal, of families quietly watching the person they love slip away one memory at a time. In the NFL, pain is both expected and ignored. It's normalized, even celebrated. Players are taught from the start that showing weakness means inviting replacement. The culture runs deep. Play through it, shake it off, don't let the team down. Coaches and teammates echo it, sometimes unconsciously. The system doesn't reward recovery, it rewards return. And in that cycle, countless players lose themselves long before they ever leave the game. One of the most haunting stories comes from Chris Borland, a promising linebacker drafted by the San Francisco 49ers in 2014. After just one season, an outstanding rookie campaign, Borland walked away. He had studied the research on concussions and chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. He'd read the reports, watched the footage of older players stumbling through interviews, forgetting their own children's names. He realized that a few more years of glory weren't worth a lifetime of confusion. When he announced his retirement at 24, it sent shockwaves through the league. But what shocked most wasn't his decision. It was how rare it was. For every Chris Borland, there are hundreds who play on. Heads spinning, vision blurred, convinced they're fine because that's what they've been conditioned to believe. The medical tent becomes a revolving door. Players evaluated, cleared, and sent back before symptoms have time to surface. The so-called concussion protocol looks rigorous on paper. But behind closed doors, the pressure is unspoken, yet relentless. Former safety Rashad Johnson once described it bluntly. If you tell them you feel dizzy, you might not play next week. So you just don't say anything. His words cut through the culture of silence, a culture where painkillers, injections, and denial are part of the uniform. Families see what the public doesn't. Wives, mothers, and children become caretakers to men who forget where they are, who wake up in the middle of the night thinking they're still on the field. Behind closed doors, the human cost becomes undeniable. Anne McKee, a neuropathologist who studied CTE for decades, once revealed that over 90% of former NFL players whose brains were examined posthumously showed signs of the disease. The numbers are staggering, but the stories are worse. Men in their 40s living with dementia, repression, and personality changes so severe that families speak of losing them long before death. Take Mike Webster, the Hall of Fame center for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Known as Iron Mike, he played through broken bones, dislocated fingers, and countless head hits. After retirement, he lived in his truck, paranoid and broken, suffering from CTE before the world even knew what it was. His case became the catalyst for a movement and for a lawsuit that exposed decades of league denial. The NFL, for years, dismissed the link between football and brain trauma. It took public outrage, congressional hearings, and the relentless work of doctors like Bennett Omalu to force change. But even after settlements and new protocols, the culture hasn't truly shifted. For every poster about safety, there's a coach reminding a player that you can teammate the club in the tub. The phrase is old, but the mindset is eternal. If you can't perform, you're expendable. That's the cruel arithmetic of the league. One man's pain becomes another's opportunity. Hidden injuries aren't always neurological. Torn ligaments, shattered joints, microfractures, they all add up. A linebacker with a dislocated shoulder learns to tape it tight and keep hitting. A running back with a fractured rib hides it under extra padding. A lineman with nerve damage learns to ignore the numbness spreading through his fingers. These aren't isolated stories. They're the backbone of professional football. And when the body finally gives out, the system moves on with chilling efficiency. Contracts are voided, bonuses unpaid, medical bills disputed. Players once treated like royalty find themselves fighting for disability benefits that are denied more often than approved. The game that celebrated their resilience suddenly questions their credibility. Families bear the emotional weight. Lauren Johnson, wife of a retired defensive back, once said, "You spend years loving someone who's half here. The league calls it a risk. We call it grief." Her husband, barely 40, no longer drives because he gets lost on familiar streets. He forgets their children's birthdays. He watches old game footage to remember who he used to be. The phrase "football is family" is printed on merchandise and commercials. But in homes across the country, real families are watching their loved ones disappear piece by piece. The human cost isn't measured in wins or losses. It's measured in confusion, pain, and premature death. Even the numbers are staggering. The average NFL player endures impacts equivalent to car crashes on every snap. Studies from Boston University and the NIH reveal that repetitive, subconcussive hits, the ones that don't cause immediate symptoms, are often more damaging than diagnosed concussions. Every practice, every drill, compounds the risk. Yet, players keep going, because the alternative, admitting weakness, means erasure. Retirement doesn't bring peace. Many former athletes spend years battling for recognition, for healthcare, for dignity. Some turn to opioids, unable to manage chronic pain. Others isolate, ashamed of their cognitive decline. And a few, like Junior Seau and Dave Durson, succumbed to the darkness entirely, taking their own lives, leaving behind notes requesting that their brains be studied so others might be spared their fate. Their deaths forced the public to confront a truth the NFL had long buried. That toughness has a cost, and that cost is often paid long after the cheers fade. In press conferences and documentaries, the league promises reform, touting helmet technology and player safety initiatives. But the deeper issue isn't equipment, it's culture. The mentality that defines the NFL's identity is the very thing destroying its men. Injuries that should heal never do. Concussions that should end seasons are shrugged off as stingers. And when players finally admit the pain, they're told it's part of the game. The problem is, for too many, the game never truly ends. It lingers in their bones, in their minds, in the faces of families who no longer recognize the person who once stood under those bright Sunday lights. The hidden injuries of football aren't just physical, they're moral. Every scar, every tremor, every lost memory reflects a system built on denial, a system that prizes strength until it breaks it. That preaches loyalty while practicing abandonment. And yet, every year, new players enter the draft believing they'll be different. They'll beat the odds. They'll make it through unscathed. But the truth is older than the league itself. No one leaves football untouched. There, as a quiet fraternity of men who once carried the weight of Sunday glory on their backs, who felt the roar of 70,000 fans and the silence that came after the final whistle. They're not in highlight reels or Super Bowl documentaries. They're the forgotten veterans of football, the ones who played just long enough to break their bodies, but not long enough to earn a pension. For decades, the NFL structure has created a cruel arithmetic: 3 credited seasons to vest, 4 to qualify for the pension. And if an injury or a front office decision cuts that time short, everything disappears. No benefits. No medical coverage. It's no acknowledgement that their sacrifice was the foundation of a billion-dollar empire. In the 1970s, as the league grew into a national spectacle, thousands of players came and went, faces erased from memory the moment they couldn't suit up. Many were undrafted, short-term rostermen who filled practice squads, endured brutal hits, and served as replaceable parts in a machine that never slowed down. The game sold their toughness as inspiration, but when the pads came off, their names faded into the background noise of American entertainment. Some of them tried to fight back. In 1982, the NFL Players Association organized one of its most defining strikes, not just for higher salaries, but for benefits that would extend beyond the playing field. The union demanded improved pensions and lifetime medical coverage, arguing that the men who built the game were being left to rot. The owners called it unreasonable, claiming the league couldn't afford such costs. This was before the billion-dollar TV deals, before the merchandising explosion, before stadium naming rights turned into empires. But the truth was simpler. The system was never designed to protect the disposable. Take the case of Dave Pear, a Super Bowl champion and one of the first to win damages against the league for post-career injuries. After retirement, Pear's body began collapsing under the weight of untreated traumatic surgeries, its constant pain, and early signs of dementia. His settlement was modest compared to the money he generated for the league. He once said in an interview, "I gave them my spine. They gave me a check that couldn't buy me back a single healthy day." For every Dave Pear, there were hundreds who never made the news. Men who fell into construction jobs or warehouse shifts, their knees held together by braces, their heads haunted by headaches that never stopped. Some found themselves homeless. Others developed addictions, painkillers, alcohol, anything that dulled the throbbing reminder of who they used to be. And when the NFL finally acknowledged the crisis of brain trauma decades later, most of these veterans were already beyond help. The pension battles revealed the moral fracture line within professional football. In 1993, after years of legal standoffs, the league and union established a new system that improved benefits, but only for those who had already met the criteria. The others, those who'd fallen just short of eligibility, remained locked out. The pre-1993 players, as they came to be called, became the invisible generation. Many fought in court, arguing that the league profited from their likenesses, their film reels, their names in the archives, yet refused to grant them basic health care. Even as the modern NFL boasts of its player care foundation and assistance programs, the numbers reveal a harsher truth. The average vested player pension hovers around $43,000 a year. But to get there, one must survive the league long enough and stay in good standing. Those who didn't, who were waived before vesting, get nothing but memories and medical bills. For some, the struggle became a calling. Former players like Brent Boyd and Bernie Parrish dedicated their later years to advocacy, testifying before Congress and pushing the NFLPA to remember its own. Boyd, once an offensive lineman for the Vikings, became an outspoken critic of how concussion and disability claims were denied. He described a Kafkaesque bureaucracy, forms lost, appeals ignored, medical evaluations dismissed. "They made me feel like I was trying to scam them," he said, "when all I wanted was help standing up without falling." What makes their stories so powerful is not just the suffering kids, the silence that followed it. Fans never see the man 20 years later, clutching his walker, staring at old game tapes as proof that he existed in that world. Wives and children often become caretakers long before they should have to. They watch as the game erodes the men they love, piece by piece, while the league markets nostalgia through highlight montages and Hall of Fame weekends. One of the most painful truths in football is how quickly the body becomes irrelevant once it can no longer serve the scoreboard. And yet, those forgotten veterans are the game's truest archive. They are the physical record of its evolution, the broken vertebrae of the 1960s, the concussions of the 1980s, the artificial turf burns that scarred the early domes. They carried the sport through eras of change, through mergers, strikes, and expansions. They made the modern NFL possible. The irony is that in the business of legacy, they have none. When the league celebrates its centennial milestones, it does so with glossy graphics and video montages, not with the names of those who made the ordinary. Sacrifices the practice squad warriors, the one-game starters, the men who gave their bodies for a paycheck that couldn't cover the damage. Some of them still gather. Once a year, in church basements and VFW halls. They meet under banners that read Gridiron Greats. They share stories, trade medical advice, and sometimes collect donations for those too far gone to work. In those rooms, football feels different. Not as spectacle, but as survival. They don't talk much about the league anymore. They talk about the teammates they lost to suicide. About the ones whose names they can remember because the memories don't come as easily as they used to. For them, the NFL is both a badge of honor and a wound that never heals. There's a line that echoes through these meetings, one repeated like prayer. We were the foundation. But the foundation cracked. And in that truth lies the story of every man who gave his best years to a sport that forgot him the moment he stopped running. The year 2011 didn't just mark a labor dispute, was a reckoning. The NFL, by then a global juggernaut worth billions, faced a standoff that cut to the bone of what the league truly valued, players or profit. When the lockout hit that spring, the headlines focused on lost practices and delayed schedules. But beneath the surface, something much deeper was happening. This was the most consequential battle over control of football's soul since the AFL-MFL merger. For decades, owners had held the upper hand. Collective bargaining agreements (CBAs) were signed under duress, amended under pressure, and interpreted through a lens that always tilted toward the franchise's financial security. The 2011 lockout, however, was the first time modern players had the leverage of full public visibilities, social media, player-led PR, and a fan base that now saw athletes as brands rather than employees. But even with that newfound influence, the outcome revealed the persistent imbalance that defines football's economics. It began with the expiration of the 2006 CBA, a deal that had expanded free agency rights and revenue sharing, but left owners uneasy about long-term costs. The league wanted a bigger slice of the pie, blaming that rising stadium expenses, health costs, and guaranteed money made profitability unsustainable. The players, through the NFLPA led by DeMaurice Smith, countered that the books weren't open. If they're broke, Smith said at the time, show us the numbers. The owners refused. The stage was set for war. The NFL opted to lock out the players, essentially freezing all operations and cutting off salaries. For the first time since 1987, the game itself was on hold. But the 2011 version wasn't about picket lines. It was about optics and power. The league was flush with TV deals that guaranteed income, even if no games were played, thanks to lockout insurance clauses negotiated with networks. That meant the owners could afford to wait, but players couldn't. Behind closed doors, both sides calculated the pain threshold. A handful of star athletesmen with endorsements and savings could weather a prolonged standoff. But the average player, whose career barely lasted 3 years, couldn't survive a year without income. That imbalance became the owner's greatest weapon. The union decertified, turning itself into a trade association so it could sue the league under antitrust law. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Drew Brees became the faces of the lawsuit, symbols of player unity across generations. But even then, cracks appeared. Some players quietly urged compromise, fearing that missing an entire season would destroy their momentum and contracts. When the lockout ended after 132 days, both sides claimed victory. But history shows it was a win for ownership. The 2011 CBA imposed a hard rookie wage scale, slashed first-round contracts, and reallocated funds toward veterans on paper, a move toward fairness. In reality, it reduced player earnings over time and shifted the economic burden downward. Teams suddenly had cheaper, younger labor and tighter salary structures. The salary cap tied directly to league revenues, creating a system where players' futures depended on the league. as ability to grow profits, a subtle but effective form of dependency. The owners maintain control of the most valuable element, guaranteed money. Unlike the NBA or MLB, where contracts were fully guaranteed, NFL deals remained fragile, one injury away from dissolution. The CBA allowed teams to cut underperforming or hurt players with minimal financial consequence, while fines for players remained steep and immediate. That's the legacy of 2011. Stability for the league, volatility for the players. Yet the lockout also awakened something else, a generation of athletes who began to think like businessmen. The New Deal forced players to reckon with the economics of the game beyond the field. Veterans like Richard Sherman and Chris Long started speaking publicly about financial literacy, union transparency, and collective empowerment. The modern player empowerment movement in football, though never as vocal as the NBA was born in that crucible. The negotiations also exposed the invisible hand of public perception. During the lockout, the league's PR machine portrayed players as greedy, entitled millionaires jeopardizing America's favorite pastime. The players countered by humanizing their stories, tweeting photos of workouts in high school gyms, posting about missing the game they loved. It was the first time fans could see both sides in real time, and it marked the beginning of football's social-era narrative war. Still, the political machinery of the NFL proved nearly impenetrable. Roger Goodell emerged stronger than ever, the league's corporate spine intact. The commissioner's office gained broader powers to discipline players, decide appeals, and manage league conduct authority that would later define cases like Deflategate and Bountygate. What began as a financial dispute evolved into a philosophical one. Who owns the right to define fairness in a billion-dollar ecosystem? To understand how deep the imbalance ran, consider the aftermath. Between 2011 and 2020, NFL revenues doubled, surpassing $15 billion annually. Player salaries rose, but unevenly. The stars got richer, the middle class shrank, and fringe players found themselves more replaceable than ever. Minimum salaries climbed modestly, but guaranteed contracts remained rare. Even the new health and safety protocols, touted as a victory, came with trade-offs. Longer seasons, Thursday night games, and more exposure to injury. The legacy of that lockout wasn't just structural, it was psychological. Players realized that unity was both their greatest strength and their most fragile weapon. In every negotiation since, from the 2020 CBA to the present, the scars of 2011 still shape strategy. Younger players, fearful of missing paychecks, often side with immediate compromise over long-term reform. Older veterans see it as betrayal, a cycle of short-term survival, undermining collective progress. It's easy, from a distance, to see the lockout as an historical footnote. The games returned, fans filled the stands, and TV ratings soared. But within the locker rooms, the memory lingers. The players remember the uncertainty, the sleepless nights waiting for updates, the calls from agents warning them to prepare for the worst. For some, that meant selling cars or homes. For others, it meant confronting what life looked like without the game. The 2011 lockout was a mirror held up to American labor itself, clash between individual ambition and collective survival. The players, like workers in any industry, discovered how hard it is to challenge a system designed to outlast them. The league, a corporation built on tradition and spectacle, proved that it could pause time itself and still profit. And when football resumed, the cheering drowned out the memory of what almost changed. That's what makes the lockout's legacy so haunting. It was both a revolution and a surrender. A line in the sand that revealed how far the sport had come and how far it still had to go. In the NFL, silence is currency. It keeps contracts stable, sponsors content, and lockerrooms.com. But for the men who decide to speak out about race, health, contracts, or corruption, the cost of that voice can be everything they've built. The league sells unity, but what it enforces is conformity. The system runs smoothly as long as players stay in line. as long as they play hurt, smile for the cameras, and keep their grievances inside the walls of team facilities. But the moment one of them decides to speak to say that something isn't right, the machinery shifts. Suddenly, opportunity dries up. The phone stops ringing. The most visible example is Colin Kaepernick, but his story is not an exception at S, a reflection of how far the NFL will go to preserve its image. Kaepernick didn't just kneel. He disrupted the choreography of control. K quarterback who led his team to a Super Bowl. Benched not for performance, but for principle. After opting out of his contract in 2017, he never took another snap. Officially, teams claimed he wasn't a fit, that his presence would be a distraction. Unofficially, he had been exiled for daring to use his platform to expose what the league didn't. T1 to confront that patriotism in football was a paid performance, that unity had a script. The league eventually settled his collusion lawsuit, a silent acknowledgement that the blacklist existed. But the damage was already done. For every Kaepernick who stood at the center of the storm, dozens of others vanished quietly, players whose names never made headlines, men who questioned a medical report, a coach's favoritism, or a team doctor's rush to clear them after concussions. They were told they had bad attitudes or were not team players. Silence protects the structure. The NFL thrives on narrative control, and the message has always been clear. Those who challenge authority lose their place in the game. Former linebacker Junior Gillette once said that after he spoke out against contract mistreatment and bias, every door closed overnight. Gillette had recorded double-digit sacks, a breakout star, yet found himself unsigned for years afterward. "They didn't even want to hear my name," he said in a 2021 interview. His story wasn't about ability, it was about defiance. There's an unspoken rule that every player learns early: protect the shield. The league's image, its patriotism, discipline, and brotherhood, is its most valuable product. Every game is wrapped in pageantry designed to reinforce that illusion. But behind the curtain, those who refuse to participate in the illusion find themselves erased. Eric Reed, Kaepernick's teammate and one of the first to kneel beside him, faced similar treatment. Despite leading his team in tackles and remaining in top form, he went unsigned for months. When he finally found a team, random drug tests and public scrutiny followed him relentlessly. Reed later joined Kaepernick's grievance case, stating simply, "They used silence as a weapon. It's not only about politics or protest. The price of silence reaches into the smallest corners of the sport. Take the players who tried to expose medical negligence." In 2012, several former athletes spoke out about how teams had rushed them back from concussions without proper clearance. Many found themselves quietly blacklisted afterward. No formal bans. Just unsigned contracts, ignored calls, and fading visibility. One team doctor told a reporter anonymously, "If a player sues or speaks to the press, he's done." Every GM knows it. The NFL's silence machine works in whispers. A phone call between executives, a coded phrase like "not a good locker room fit." It's a system built on plausible deniability. By the time the player realizes what's happening, it's too late. Kaepernick became the symbol, but men like Kenny easily lived it decades before. Easley, one of the fiercest safeties of the 1980s, sued the Seahawks after a kidney condition allegedly aggravated by team-issued painkillers dead his career. He was blackballed long before the term entered the modern lexicon. Easley would later say, "Once you speak against them, you're invisible." It took over 20 years and a Hall of Fame induction for his story to resurface. The NFL markets itself as a league of second chances where redemption stories sell jerseys and ratings. But that redemption rarely extends to those who challenge its authority. Players arrested for violence, drugs, or gambling often return after suspensions. But those who expose systemic failure, corruption, or hypocrisy, they disappear quietly into the background. Even journalists have seen the shadow of this silence. Reporters who press too hard on health policies or union corruption often find access revoked. Media networks dependent on broadcast contracts tread lightly. The result is a culture of fear wrapped in spectacle. To understand how effective this system is, consider how many players past and present remain unnamed, their grievances untold. Every offseason brings stories of men who retire without ceremony, citing personal reasons or business decisions. Behind those phrases lie deeper truths: a missed guarantee, an injury dispute, or a quiet warning from management that their public comments have caused concern. The irony is painful. The league thrives on its mythology of courage and individuality. Yet the men who show true courage, the kind that confronts power, not just defenders, are punished for it. The NFL sells freedom but practices compliance. For younger players watching all this unfold, the message is clear. Stay quiet, stay marketable, stay grateful. Rookie symposiums emphasize financial discipline and media training, but rarely moral courage. The unwritten lesson is that silence ensures longevity. Speaking out ensures unemployment. And that's how control persists, not through laws or bans, but through culture. Through fear disguised as professionalism. Through contracts that make dissent a liability. When Kaepernick's image reappeared years later in Nike's Believe in Something, even if it means sacrificing everything campaign, it was a moment of poetic defiance. Yet even that victory was bittersweet. The league continued without him. The stadiums still filled. And the system he challenged evolved, adapting just enough to absorb the criticism without changing its foundation. That's the quiet genius of the NFL's machine. It never silences with overt censorship. It does it through forgetting. Time becomes the tool of compliance. Heroes fade, protests blur, and the next season always promises distraction. But the price remains. The players who spoke out walk away carrying the weight of knowing they were right-hand, the cost of knowing that truth didn't matter. As former wide receiver Dante Stallworth once said, "The NFL doesn't need to tell you to shut up. It just makes sure no one hears you again." They told us there was protection. That if the hits ever became too much, if the body finally broke under the weight of years in the arena, there would be help. That was the promise, the insurance, the disability plans, the safety net for the men who built the empire with their bones. But in the NFL, that promise has always been a lie, dressed as paperwork. The truth is that post-career insurance in the league is not a safety net, SMAs built to exhaust you. For decades, players believed they were protected by the very contracts and benefit programs their union had negotiated. They weren't. Those programs were structured to minimize payout, to protect the shield, not the players. What awaited them after retirement wasn't security, was denial letters, appeals, and silence. The NFL's disability plan was created in 1970, revised countless times since, always under the banner of player welfare. Yet nearly every former player who has tried to access it tells the same story: denial, delay, dismissal. The league's official records claim that fewer than 10% of applications are approved on the first attempt. Independent studies put the number even lower. For the rest, it's months, sometimes years of legal battles against the very system that promised to care for them. The process begins innocently enough. A player retires, the pain becomes unbearable. And he applies for disability through the Burt Bell Pete Rozelle plan. He submits medical documentation, team history, x-rays, and proof of impairment. Then comes the wait. Months later, a letter arrives, insufficient evidence. The panel of evaluators, hired jointly by the league and the NFL Players Association, decides that the injuries are not football-related or not totally disabling. The player is told to appeal. The cycle repeats. Take the case of former offensive lineman Joe Thomas Sr., who played through knee injuries and multiple surgeries in the 1990s. After retiring, he could barely walk without assistance. His claim was denied 3 times over 7 years. The committee concluded that his condition was degenerative and unrelated to football activity. He had spent over a decade pushing against defensive lines twice his size, yet his suffering was reclassified as age. The cruelty lies not just in the denial, but in the language. Players describe feeling humiliated, treated as liars by the very league they helped build. "They make you prove your pain," said one retired cornerback, now in his 50s. "It's not enough to be broken, you have to convince them it's their fault." Even players diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries faced resistance. In the years following the concussion lawsuits of the 2010s, the league established a settlement fund over $1 billion, supposedly for cognitive and neurological impairments. But soon after, stories emerged of racial norming, where black players were held to higher cognitive baselines, making it harder for them to qualify for payouts. The revelation was devastating. The league eventually abandoned the practice, but not before countless players had been denied what they were owed. The lie runs deep because the system is designed to protect the bottom line. Every disability approval sets a precedent. Every payout risks admitting liability. So instead, the league outsources its denial. It hides behind committees, doctors, and arbitration. And for players without the means to hire lawyers or the energy to keep fighting, the result is silence. Consider the case of former running back Reggie Williams, who spent 14 years with the Cincinnati Bengals. He underwent multiple surgeries after retirement knee replacements, hip reconstruction, and now walks with the aid of a cane. His application for total and permanent disability benefits was initially denied. "They told me my injuries weren't severe enough," Williams said in a 2018 interview. "I showed them the scars. I told them about the nights I couldn't sleep. Still, it wasn't enough." For every Reggie Williams, there are hundreds of nameless men's special teamers. Practice squad players, linemen whose faces never made it to television. Their stories rarely reach the public because their struggles don't fit the league's mythology of heroism. The NFL's post-career insurance system operates like a corporate firewall. Officially, it's run jointly by the league and the Players Association. In reality, both have an incentive to keep numbers low. The union fears increasing costs that could affect active players' benefits. The league fears admitting fault. It's a partnership built on mutual convenience rather than compassion. Then there's the medical insurance gap. When players retire, unless they've vested through at least 3 credited seasons, they lose NFL health insurance. Imagine dedicating your youth to the sport, taking hits that leave permanent damage, only to find that once you're no longer useful on Sunday, you're paying out of pocket for the consequences. Some players turn to crowdfunding to cover medical bills. Others live with untreated conditions because the cost of care exceeds what their short NFL careers earned them. Linebacker Patrick Chukira, who played parts of 7 seasons, described it bluntly. "You think you've made it, that you're set for life. Then you wake up one day and realize the league doesn't even return your calls. When the league does settle, it often comes with silence. Clauses, agreements that prevent former players from discussing the details publicly. These non-disclosure agreements erase the full scope of what's happening. For every public lawsuit, there are dozens of private settlements. Each one another brick in the wall of silence surrounding the NFL's accountability. Even the league's much-publicized Player Care Foundation serves as a thin veil. It funds occasional grants and medical assistance, but is limited to select cases and subject to board approval. It is charity, not justice. The system's defenders argue that many players live comfortably, that not all are suffering. That's true, but it's also irrelevant. The measure of integrity isn't how well the successful are treated. It's how the broken are remembered. For every Hall of Famer who thrives, there's a dozen linemen who can't climb stairs without pain, or a former cornerback whose memory fades before 50. The insurance lie isn't just about money. It's about moral responsibility. The NFL asks men to destroy themselves for entertainment and profit. It celebrates them when they're warriors, and disowns them when they become reminders of what the game truly costs. Retired defensive end Marvin Washington once said, "They love you until you can't suit up." then you're just another claim number. The disability plans, the healthcare promises, the pensions on paper, they look humane. But in practice, they serve a darker purpose: to project compassion while protecting the empire. It's not that the NFL lacks the resources. It's that acknowledging the depth of the damage would unravel the myth of control. The game survives on the illusion that pain is temporary and glory eternal. But for too many, that illusion ends in hospital rooms, legal documents, and denials stamped in ink. Every denial letter, every bureaucratic delay, carries the same message the league has whispered since its earliest days. The moment you stop generating value, you stop existing. This is the shadow of the modern Coliseum, the hidden aftermath of Sunday glory. And for the men who believe the promise, the hardest truth is this: the contract didn't end when they stopped playing. It ended when they stopped being profitable. By the 1970s, the NFL had transformed from a regional spectacle into a national obsession. Its players' household names and its Sunday games, a kind of ritualized modern warfare. Yet for all the blood and brilliance spilled across those decades, many of the men who built the game's mythology were left to age in poverty. The pension, a supposed promise of lifelong dignity, became a symbol of betrayal. What began as a token gesture in the league's early years evolved into one of the longest, most bitter labor battles in American sports history. The earliest NFL pension plans were introduced in the late 1950s. But they came with a cruel catch. You had to play at least 5 seasons to qualify. In an era when the average career lasted less than 4, that rule effectively disqualified most players before they could even dream of collecting. The pension was touted as a reward for loyalty, but it was, in truth, an illusion of security. For men who destroyed their bodies to build the sport, retirement often came with broken bones, scattered memories, and no safety net. Players from the 1960s and 1970s, men who had paved the road for television. Riches began to see how little they were worth once their cleats hit the ground for the last time. Many of them were part-time athletes, holding second jobs as teachers, salesmen, or truck drivers during the off-season. When the NFL finally exploded into a billion-dollar enterprise, they looked back and saw themselves erased from the narrative. The pension fund they helped establish grew fat, but the benefits barely trickled down. The fight began quietly, in union meetings and letters to league offices. But by the 1980s, it erupted into public outrage. Retired players organized associations, held press conferences, and even filed lawsuits. Men like Bernie Parrish and Sam Huff, legends in their own right, became advocates for reform, arguing that the league had betrayed its own founders. Their message was simple: we built the house. Why are we locked out of it? The NFL Players Association, caught between generations, struggled to balance loyalty to its retirees with the ambitions of its active stars. Younger players wanted better salaries and free agency. Older veterans demanded what they were owed. Owners, of course, capitalized on the division. They claimed the pension funds were sufficient, that the problem lay in mismanagement or unrealistic expectations. But the truth was more sinister. The system had been designed to favor the present, not the past. In one haunting example, retired players discovered that the pension calculations hadn't been adjusted for inflation in decades. A man who retired in 1978 might receive just a few $100s a month, barely enough to cover his medical prescriptions. Meanwhile, owners were signing television contracts worth billions. It was a disparity that cut to the moral core of the sport. The men who made football America's game were being discarded like broken equipment. The legal battles dragged on for years. Class action suits were filed and dismissed. Committees were formed and dissolved. Congress was even drawn into the debate, with hearings exposing how poorly the league had treated its retirees. But reform came slowly, and often too late. Many players who fought for justice didn't live to see it. They passed away waiting for benefits that were always under review. The generational divide only deepened as modern players began signing contracts worth tens of millions. The new stars of the 2000s lived in a different world: private jets, brand endorsements, and guaranteed money. The pension fights of the past seemed almost mythical, relics of a less glamorous time. But beneath that glittering surface, the old wounds never fully healed. Veterans who had played for peanuts still lived with daily pain, watching a league that had turned their sacrifice into gold. For every Hall of Famer who found success in broadcasting or business, there were dozens who slipped into quiet anonymity, living with bad hips, replaced knees, or early-onset dementia. Some depended on charity from fellow players. Others became cautionary tales whispered at NFL alumni events. The emotional cost was perhaps the hardest to quantify. Men who had once been cheered by millions now found themselves forgotten, their glory days reduced to grainy footage and fading memories. When the NFL finally increased pension payments in the 2000s, it was celebrated as progress. But to the men who had waited decades, it felt hollow. The league that had once promised brotherhood and honor had become an empire built on selective amnesia. The old guard, the warriors of leather helmets and mud-soaked fields, were left to reckon with a painful truth. Football rewards the present, but rarely remembers the past. Every time a retired player passes away with his pension dispute unresolved, it's another reminder that time is running out for the generation that made the NFL possible. The pension battles may no longer dominate headlines, but their echoes linger in every debate about fairness, compensation, and legacy. The men who fought for dignity didn't ask for charity. They asked for recognition, for respect, for the league to live up to the very values it markets every Sunday. And for many, that recognition never came. When the final whistle blows and the stadium lights fade, something far heavier than silence settles in. For most players, it isn't just the end of a career. It asks the end of an identity. For years, their entire existence has revolved around the game. Regimented schedules, locker room brotherhood, adrenaline-fueled Sundays. And then, suddenly, it's gone. The structure evaporates, the calls stop coming, and the noise that once defined them is replaced by an unbearable quiet. What fills that silence is something the league rarely talks about: the psychological collapse that follows. The end of a football life. Depression among former NFL players has been documented for decades. It remains one of the league's most understated crises. For men conditioned to equate toughness with silence, acknowledging emotional pain feels like weakness. Many were raised in a culture where injuries were treated with tape and grit, and mental wounds weren't even part of the vocabulary. So when the paychecks stop and the validation disappears, the emotional spiral begins, often privately, invisibly, and tragically. The most public face of this crisis is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. It's the disease that has haunted football's conscience since the early 2000s, when Dr. Bennett Omalu's research cracked open the dark secret buried beneath the helmets. Repeated head trauma wasn't just shortening careers. It was erasing personalities, distorting behavior, and leading men towards self-destruction. Players once celebrated for their fearlessness were now trapped inside deteriorating minds, unable to explain their rage, confusion, or despair. But CTE is only part of the picture. Long before diagnosis, long before symptoms become undeniable, players experience another kind of decay: the erosion of purpose. The game gives them meaning, hierarchy, and belonging. Without it, they drift. Many speak of waking up in retirement unsure of who they are. They were linebackers, quarterbacks, safeties, titles that once carried the weight of identity. When those titles vanish, what's left? The world that worshipped them yesterday has moved on. The fans have found new heroes, and they are left staring into the mirror, wondering if the man they see is even real anymore. Financial uncertainty compounds the mental strain. A shocking number of retired players run into financial ruin within just a few years of leaving the league. The reasons vary: poor financial advice, predatory management, reckless spending, divorce, or medical costs. But the emotional impact is universal. Shame. These were men who had once commanded respect and wealth. Now forced to confront instability, they thought they'd escaped forever. Depression feeds on that loss of control. And for some, the only perceived escape is a permanent one. The list of tragedies is long. Former players like Junior Seau, Dave Durson, and Ray Easterling, all diagnosed posthumously with CTE, took their own lives, leaving behind notes that begged for their brains to be studied. They didn't die for attention. They died seeking understanding. Their deaths forced the world to acknowledge what players had been whispering for years. Football takes more than it gives. And the damage doesn't stop when the pads come off. Yet even those who survive the mental collapse often carry invisible scars. Some become withdrawn, paranoid, or impulsive. Marriages crumble, friendships fade. The men who once led teams into battle find themselves unable to maintain daily routines. Studies from institutions like Boston University's CTE Center have shown clear correlations between brain trauma, depression, and cognitive decline. But just as alarming is the correlation between mental health struggles and financial distress. When the money runs out, so does the sense of security, and that fear amplifies every existing wound. The league's response has been inconsistent. After years of denial, the NFL now funds mental health initiatives and concussion protocols. But critics argue these measures remain cosmetic. For the men already suffering, therapy sessions and hotline numbers feel like too little, too late. The lawsuits filed by thousands of former players over brain injuries resulted in a multi-billion-dollar settlement. But even that was marred by controversy, claims denied, delays in processing, and racial bias in evaluating cognitive impairment. The system meant to provide relief ended up reopening old wounds. And there's a deeper irony here. The NFL markets itself as a story of perseverance, of heroes who overcome pain and adversity. But the truth beneath that narrative is far darker. Many of those heroes are now casualties of the very machine that celebrated them. Their courage, their sacrifice, their devotion to the game all converted into revenue, while their suffering remains an afterthought. The public remembers the touchdowns. The players remember the mornings they couldn't get out of bed. Still, some are fighting back through advocacy, education, and reform. Organizations led by former players are pushing for better mental health support, more transparent research, and lifelong care programs. The conversation, once taboo, is finally happening. Younger players now talk openly about therapy, balance, and life beyond the field. They're beginning to understand that mental health is not weakness, it's survival. But this shift comes at the cost of those who came before, the men whose pain forced the change. The psychological fallout of football isn't confined to the field. It extends into families, communities, and legacies. Every story of resilience is shadowed by another of loss. Every highlight reel hides a quieter truth that the emotional cost of the sport remains its most underreported statistic. Football can give a man immortality, but it can also take away his sense of self. And when the game ends, not everyone knows how to live beyond it. When a player's career collapses, it doesn't fall in isolation. It drags down an entire family with it. The game that once promised stability and pride becomes the very thing that fractures the foundation of home. Behind every jersey is a spouse managing the chaos, children adjusting to new realities, and parents who watch their son fade from the spotlight into uncertainty. The end of a football career isn't just a professional transition. It's an earthquake that shakes everything connected to that player's identity, finances, and mental health. For spouses, the NFL dream begins as a shared one. The first contract feels like a golden ticket, financial comfort, admiration, and a future free from worry. But buried within that promise are clauses, deadlines, and hidden contingencies. The guaranteed money rarely covers what families think it does. When players are cut, the checks stop, and so does the life they built around them. The sudden loss of income isn't just financial, it's existential. Families who once lived by structured schedules and steady pay find themselves confronting an unfamiliar silence. The instability begins early. NFL life demands constant relocation. One season in Dallas, the next in Detroit, sometimes a mid-year move if a player is traded or cut. Spouses become logistics managers, finding new housing, transferring kids to new schools, living out of boxes while their partner's entire focus stays locked on survival within the team hierarchy. Many families describe a strange duality, pride in the career and exhaustion from its demands. Every Sunday comes with both adrenaline and dread. The joy of watching their loved one play, and the fear that one hit could end everything. When that end does come, it often does so abruptly. No farewell tour, no transition plan, just a phone call, a locker cleaned out, and a home suddenly too large for its purpose. The financial adjustment is brutal. Mortgages on houses near training facilities, car leases, tuition payments, all designed for an income that no longer exists. Many families go from abundance to uncertainty in a matter of weeks. The stress seeps into relationships, often quietly at first. Short tempers, sleepless nights, arguments over future plans. The game that once united them begins to divide. The psychological fallout spills into marriages. Divorce rates among former players are significantly higher than average. The reasons are complex: financial stress, emotional withdrawal, infidelity, mental health decline. For many wives, the transition from football life to post-football reality feels like mourning a version of their spouse that no longer exists. They remember the man full of energy, confidence, and purpose, replaced now by one uncertain of his worth. The public sees the statistics. Families live the collapse. Then there's the issue of medical bills. Injuries sustained during a career don't disappear when the season ends. The pain continues, but the coverage doesn't. Spouses often become full-time caregivers, managing surgeries, medications, and therapy sessions. The NFL's healthcare structure, especially for retired players without long-term coverage, leaves many families scrambling. What used to be Sunday pride becomes daily maintenance. What used to be celebration becomes survival. Some families find ways to rebuild. They learn to live smaller, quieter lives. They form support networks with other former players' families, sharing advice on how to navigate pensions, disability claims, and post-football careers. Wives become advocates, helping their husbands find new paths, coaching, commentary, business, anything that restores a sense of purpose. But even among those who adapt, the scars remain. The game took years of emotional labor, and recovery doesn't come overnight. The darker side of this story lies in the children who internalize the instability. Studies have shown that children of former NFL players often experience higher rates of anxiety and identity confusion. They grow up seeing their fathers idolized, then dismissed. They inherit the silence, the pride, and sometimes the trauma. Football families learn early that love for the game comes with a price, and that price isn't always paid by the player alone. In recent years, the league has made gestures toward family outreach, workshops, counseling, and transition programs. But many families call these efforts superficial. They say the system still values performance over personhood. Well, the NFL's culture of disposability doesn't stop at the locker room. It echoes through living rooms, schools, and hospital corridors. Every time a player is cut, there's a wife explaining to her children why they have to move again, why dad is quiet, why everything feels uncertain. And yet, within this pain, there are moments of profound resilience. Spouses who stand by through addiction, depression, or financial ruin. Children who grow into advocates, determined to change the system that broke their parents. These stories don't make the highlight reels, but they define what survival looks like in the shadow of football. The true test of strength in the NFL isn't just played on Sundays. It's lived quietly in the families that hold together when the game no longer does. Because when the contracts expire and the headlines fade, The love that remains has to rebuild what the league forgot to protect. For every player silenced by the system, there has always been someone willing to speak, even when it meant exile. The story of the NFL's dark contracts isn't just about exploitation, it's also about rebellion. It's the quiet war waged by insiders, union leaders, journalists, and former players who refuse to let the machine run unchecked. They are the voices that tore open the curtain, the ones who risked their careers, their reputations, and their peace to expose how the league treated its labor force, not as men, but as replaceable commodities. Change in the NFL never came from comfort. It came from confrontation. It began decades ago when the first generation of players realized that the league's soaring profits were built on their pain. Men like John Mackey, the Hall of Fame tight end from the Baltimore Colts, became one of the earliest reformers. As the first president of the NFL Players Association to push for collective bargaining rights, Mackey faced immense resistance from owners who treated unionization as betrayal. He was blacklisted, sidelined, and labeled disruptive, but his persistence forced the NFL to recognize the basic rights of players as workers. His fight laid the foundation for every contract negotiation that came after. But the reformers who followed him understood the system's cruelty firsthand. Many of them had seen teammates cut after devastating injuries, denied pensions, or buried under medical debt. They had lived the fine print and decided to fight it. The NFLPA became more than a union. It became a shield against institutional neglect. Yet even within its walls, there were fractures. Some players saw the leadership as too close to ownership, too compromised to truly protect them. The result was a constant power struggle between those willing to cooperate with the league and those determined to challenge it outright. The 2011 lockout became the most visible expression of this tension. It wasn't just about money or revenue splits. It was about leverage and the human cost of the league's profit margins. Players demanded better safety guarantees, longer-term benefits, and improved post-career health care. The owners, armed with billions in broadcast deals, waited them out. For months, the game stood still. Behind the scenes, journalists chronicled the struggle. Voices like Andrew Brandt and Sally Jenkins bringing attention to the imbalance of power, exposing how fragile the player's economic position truly was. But not all reformers came from the front lines. Some came from the inside. Team doctors, trainers, and staff who saw the toll of repeated concussions and hidden injuries. Men like Dr. Bennett Omalu, who first identified chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, in former players, faced intense backlash when his research contradicted the league's public stance. The NFL tried to discredit him, to silence his findings, to bury the truth beneath corporate denial. But Omalu persisted, and his work reshaped how the world viewed player safety. He became both a hero and a cautionary tale, proof that telling the truth in football comes with consequences. Whistleblowers emerged in every era. Former players leaked documents revealing how disability claims were routinely denied. Union lawyers exposed how injury settlements were structured to protect teams, not athletes. Investigative journalists uncovered pension mismanagement, pointing out that many retired players were living below the poverty line while franchises posted record profits. Each revelation came at a cost: careers stalled, relationships burned, access revoked. But the pattern was clear. Reform in the NFL depended on those willing to endure personal ruin for collective progress. Among the modern generation, Colin Kaepernick stands as the most controversial reformer of all. Though his protests centered on racial justice and police brutality, his story reflects the same machinery of punishment faced by others who challenged the league's image. After kneeling during the national anthem in 2016, Kaepernick found himself effectively blacklisted. No team would sign him, despite his proven talent. His absence sent a chilling message. The NFL tolerated dissent only when it didn't threaten its brand. Yet Kaepernick's sacrifice sparked a broader awakening among fans, players, and sponsors, forcing the league to confront its contradictions. Then came the new wave. advocacy groups like the Concussion Legacy Foundation, player coalitions pushing for guaranteed contracts, and retired veterans demanding retroactive compensation. Social media gave them amplification that earlier generations never had. No longer could the league suppress every critical voice. The players now had platforms of their own. The stories once buried in newspaper back pages now trended worldwide within hours. This democratization of truth shifted the balance of narrative control, even if institutional reform still lagged behind. Behind these public battles were the lesser-known reformers, the wives and widows of former players who became activists after losing their loved ones to CTE, depression, or financial ruin. Women like Mary Ann Easterling, the widow of former Falcons safety Ray Easterling, who took her husband's case to court after his death and helped push the billion-dollar concussion settlement. They carried the fight forward when their husbands could not. Their courage reframed the conversation, transforming private grief into public advocacy. Even today, resistance remains dangerous. Journalists covering the league's inner dealings still face threats of blacklisting or litigation. Players speaking out about union corruption risk being labeled disloyal. The NFL's power is vast, its control over access nearly total. But the cracks are widening. Younger athletes are more educated about financial structures, more willing to question authority, more aware of the short shelf life of fame. The one silent fraternity of players is learning to speak in unison. And that unity terrifies the system that once profited from their isolation. Still, every reformer learns the same hard truth. Change in the NFL comes slowly and never without resistance. For every step forward, a safer helmet design, a more transparent pension policy, an expanded healthcare clause, there are setbacks hidden in the fine print. The league evolves, but only under pressure. And that pressure must be sustained by the very men it used to discard. What binds these reformers and whistleblowers is not anger, but conviction. A belief that the sport can be more than a machine for profit. That the men who built its legacy deserve the dignity it often denies them. They fight not to destroy the game, but to redeem it, because they understand what fans often forget. The NFL is not just a spectacle. It is a workplace. And the heroes who fill its arenas are workers whose labor sustains an empire. When those workers finally unite, when truth outweighs loyalty, reform ceases to be an act of rebellion. It becomes a reckoning. The NFL promises glory, but it rarely promises closure. For some, the league offers a path to redemption, a chance to reclaim identity beyond the field. For others, it delivers nothing but ruin, a lingering shadow that follows them from locker room to living room, from fame to obscurity. This duality is the hidden legacy of football. It can elevate and annihilate in equal measure. Consider the stories of players who emerged from the wreckage of cut contracts, injuries, or public shaming to forge new lives. Some found second careers in coaching, broadcasting, or entrepreneurship. They discovered purpose in guiding the next generation, translating the lessons learned under stadium lights into wisdom for those who follow. Tony Gonzalez, the Hall of Fame tight end, transitioned seamlessly into media, offering insight and mentorship while maintaining a sense of relevance. Others opened foundations, supported charities, or engaged in community leadership, turning personal hardship into collective good. These men embody the rare balance of resilience and reinvention. Their journeys show that the end of a football career need not be the end of a life worth living. Yet for every story of triumph, there are countless tales of despair. Players who once commanded the respect of tens of thousands now face eviction, bankruptcy, and addiction. Their skills, honed over a decade of grueling practice, cannot always translate into civilian life. Some struggle with lingering physical injuries, chronic pain, or cognitive decline, the hidden tolls of years spent absorbing hits that the public barely sees. Others wrestle with depression, anxiety, and the psychological fallout of identity loss. They carry the weight of what could have been, haunted by contracts that were never fully honored. injuries never fully acknowledged, and a culture that discarded them when they were no longer profitable. Financial ruin often intersects with emotional collapse. Despite the myth of football wealth, studies reveal that a significant percentage of NFL players face insolvency within a few years of retirement. Poor financial management, high-profile divorces, predatory advisors, and lavish spending erode their safety nets. For some, the loss of income is compounded by medical expenses incurred during their careers. Surgeries, rehabilitation, and chronic treatments that the league or insurers only partially cover. Families feel the consequences as acutely as the players themselves, forced into a constant scramble to maintain stability. The psychological weight of being cast out is often as debilitating as physical injury. Many players describe retirement as a form of exile, a separation from the only community that truly understood them. Teammates, coaches, and fans fade into memory. The locker room camaraderie vanishes overnight, leaving former players to navigate a world in which they are no longer celebrated, no longer protected, no longer essential. The silence that greets them can be deafening. For those unprepared to redefine themselves, it can become intolerable. Yet, redemption is possible, and it is often forged in adversity. Some players use their experiences to advocate for structural change, ensuring that the next generation doesn't face the same systemic pitfalls. Others find personal fulfillment in mentorship, business ventures, or education, channeling the discipline and resilience cultivated on the field into new arenas. Their stories are quieter than those of media darlings, but no less significant. They remind us that football is more than a game. It is a crucible, one that can either break a man or reveal his capacity to endure. The dichotomy of redemption and ruin underscores a fundamental truth. The NFL is both a kingdom and a cage. It offers immense reward, yet it exacts an almost equal toll. Players enter with youthful optimism, imagining stadium cheers, record-breaking plays, and financial security. The reality, however, is far more precarious. Contracts dissolve, injuries accumulate, and fame is fleeting. What remains after the final whistle is rarely glory alone. It is a reckoning, a confrontation with the choices, circumstances, and culture that shaped their careers. For those who survive and thrive, the lessons are enduring. They understand the value of planning, the importance of mental health, and the necessity of community. They have learned to separate self-worth from on-field success, to find meaning outside the roar of the crowd. Their resilience becomes a model, a testament to human adaptability in the face of relentless physical and emotional strain. But the cautionary tales are equally compelling. They haunt locker rooms long after a season ends, echo in pension disputes, and linger in the lives of families forced to absorb the fallout. These stories illustrate the true cost of the sport, the human beings beneath the helmets, whose sacrifices are often invisible until it is too late. The league can provide fame, wealth, and adulation, but it can also leave scars that last a lifetime. In the end, the legacy of the NFL is neither wholly heroic nor entirely tragic. It is complex, layered, and unforgiving. Some men walk away with more than they ever imagined, having leveraged the platform to create lasting impact. Others are left with memories of a game that demanded everything and returned far less than it promised. The common thread is vulnerability, the fragile humanity that persists beneath the armor, beneath the contracts, beneath the statistics. The stadium may empty, the lights may dim, and the crowd may move on. But the lives of the players, their struggles, their triumphs, their losses remain. The contracts that once defined them do not erase the men behind them. And in that lingering truth lies the haunting reality of football. It gives and it takes in equal measure. The stadium stands empty now, the roar of the crowd reduced to echoes that hang in the rafters like ghosts. Cleats no longer pound the turf. Helmets are stacked in lockers, and jerseys, once vibrant with number and color, are folded, packed, or sold. And yet, in that silence, something far heavier than the absence of sound lingers. It is the weight of human cost, the invisible debts owed to the men who gave everything to a game that moves relentlessly forward, indifferent to those who built it. This is the essence of what we have come to call the dark contract. It is more than ink on paper, more than dollars guaranteed or void years or offsets buried in fine print. It is a moral ledger, a measure of how a league that promises glory often delivers disposability. Players are treated as assets to be leveraged, traded, and released with calculated efficiency. Yet their bodies, minds, and families carry consequences that last a lifetime. From the rookie who steps onto the field with dreams in his eyes to the veteran whose knees are shattered by decades of collisions, the contract is both a promise and a trap, offering reward while simultaneously exposing vulnerability. We have traced the path from initial optimism to eventual reckoning. From draft day illusions, when young men are told they are guaranteed fame, to the harsh realities of injuries, blacklisting, and denied benefits. From the heartbreak of families uprooted and futures destabilized, to the courage of those who fought for reform and transparency. And through it all runs a thread of human resilience. Some players navigating the wreckage to rebuild, others lost to the shadows of unfulfilled promise. The dark contract is not an abstract concept. It is lived, felt, and remembered by every individual who has dared to walk onto the field. The stories of players cut short, of pensions delayed, of insurance claims denied, reveal a systemic pattern that has persisted for decades. The league structure, its incentives, its priorities, its rewards, is designed to maximize performance while minimizing responsibility. A player's value is calculated in touchdowns, sacks, and ratings, not in human dignity. When that performance declines, the apparatus of power moves swiftly. Contracts are terminated. Medical coverage is withdrawn, and reputations are quietly erased. For those who dissent, the consequences are severe. Speaking out, demanding fairness, or seeking justice is met with retaliation, blacklisting, or professional exile. And yet, those who persist, the reformers, whistleblowers, and advocates, illuminate the cracks in a system that profits from silence. The emotional toll cannot be overstated. Beyond physical injury lies a labyrinth of psychological strain. Depression, anxiety, and the shadow of chronic traumatic encephalopathy. CTE weave through the lives of men once celebrated for their courage. Families, too, bear this burden, living with instability, financial strain, and the emotional fallout of a career that promised so much, yet delivered so little in the long term. For some, the cost is recoverable. For others, it becomes an indelible mark, a reminder that glory in football is fleeting and expendability permanent. Yet even in the darkness, moments of redemption emerge. Players who rebuild their lives, who find purpose in mentorship, business, media, or advocacy, prove that identity is not solely defined by a contract or a career. They show us that the lessons learned in the crucible of the NFL discipline, resilience, teamwork, can translate into meaningful impact outside the stadium. These stories are quiet victories, often overshadowed by headlines, but no less significant. They offer a counterpoint to the narrative of ruin, a reminder that survival is possible even in a system built to consume. Still, the question lingers. What is the worth of a man in a game that treats human beings as disposable commodities? It is a question that cannot be answered in statistics or monetary sums. It cannot be reduced to career length or contracts signed. The true cost is measured in lived experience, in the sleepless nights of a player worried about finances, in the rehabilitation sessions after surgeries, in the therapy for mental health struggles, and in the conversations at kitchen tables where families negotiate survival. The league may assign value in performance metrics, but the human ledger is far more complex and far more consequential. We have seen that the dark contract is not merely a legal artifact. It is cultural, moral, and emotional. It codifies a relationship between a league and its players that is unequal by design. It illuminates the tension between spectacle and sacrifice, between profit and humanity. And perhaps most importantly, it challenges us as fans, as citizens, as participants in the mythology of football, to confront the reality that the heroes we cheer are simultaneously the most vulnerable. Their labor entertains, yet it often scars. It builds empires, yet it leaves individuals exposed. The legacy of these men is both heroic and tragic. Their courage under the glare of stadium lights, their commitment to team and sport, their willingness to endure pain and risk long-term health all deserve recognition. And yet, recognition alone is insufficient. The structural inequities, the systemic exploitation, and the cultural devaluation of players' humanity must be acknowledged. Only by confronting these truths can the NFL evolve beyond a model of disposable labor and toward one that honors the full spectrum of human cost inherent in the sport. The silence after the stadium is more than absence. It is reflection. It is consequence. It is the lingering question of what happens to those who gave everything and were left behind. As the echoes of cleats fade down empty corridors, we are left to consider not just the spectacle, but the lives entwined within it. The men who built the NFL's mythology deserve more than applause. They deserve fairness, support, and enduring dignity. In the end, the dark contract is a mirror. It reflects the ambitions, compromises, and moral contradictions of a league that celebrates achievement but often neglects accountability. It exposes the fragility of fame and the volatility of trust. It reminds us that behind every touchdown, every sack, and every highlight reel, there exists a human story, one shaped by courage, sacrifice, and, too often, loss. As we close this examination, the stadium is silent once more, but the stories remain. They haunt, inform, and challenge us. They compel us to question how society measures worth in a system that prizes spectacle over survival. They demand that we acknowledge the men who walked onto the field with hope, skill, and resilience, only to face a reality that often forgot them the moment the crowd cheered for the next hero. And yet, there is a measure of hope in remembrance. By telling these stories, by naming the debts and sacrifices, we honor the men who gave everything physically, mentally, and emotionally for the game we love. Their legacy is not merely the plays they executed or the games they won. It is the truth they embody that human worth cannot be reduced to a contract, and that dignity must endure beyond the final whistle. The silence after the stadium is permanent, but it is not meaningless. It is a space to reckon, to reflect, and to remember. And in that space, the true cost of football and the true courage of the men who play it is revealed.